Hello, and welcome to the Total Mental Performance Podcast, the one and only mindset podcast dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs and coaches master their mindset, giving you insider access to industry leaders around their psychology, their campfire stories, and the mindset required to be successful in this business. I'm your host, Kieran O'Neill, mental performance coach and founder of Total Mental Performance, the world's fastest growing specialist mindset service dedicated to the fitness industry. So, without further ado, let's lean in and listen. Hello and welcome to another installment of Total Mental Performance Podcast. Today we have a really awesome man. As soon as I met him, I knew I wanted to bring him onto the pod. We actually met in the Spanish Butcher in Glasgow. Strongly recommend if you're looking for a top cut steak, and even the service in there was just top class. It's Troy Nixon. Troy is head of performance at the High Performance Coach. He also leads Team Nixon Fitness. And he's in a very unique position. He's not only in the trenches, just like us at TMP, coaching coaches every day and holding space for those coaches, but he's running two businesses. So for him, high performance is really important. When we first met, we really connected, and I just said to him, dude, we've got to get you on the pod. Troy, it's an honor, mate. Thank you for coming on.
Kieran, mate, thank you so much for the opportunity, mate. Incredibly excited. And the Spanish Butcher, that 4-hour dinner that we had together was not desirable, but extremely delicious, mate.
It was one of those conversations where you just need to put the mic on the table. I might start bringing this mic with me everywhere and go, stop, bang, on it goes. We went everywhere, whether that was coaching, the state of the industry, our own personal stories. We even went into the psychedelic realm. It was fascinating. Mate, how did you get into coaching? How did it all start?
Started. My mum actually used to work in a home's place when I was about 14 as a general manager, and she got me a job in the kitchen, just washing dishes when I was 14. And from there, I was just obviously within the gym environment, and just then, just got this attraction to it. My dad used to be sort of semi into bodybuilding, and then his influence was there, and I've just sort of grown up in that environment, and I feel as if it's just spread from there effectively. And then since that point, I've been training, learning, evolving, and just seeing the mental and physical benefits of it. And then from there, that sort of led me to then go into the coaching element and helping others, as a lot of other people's story starts with themselves, and then transition over to then helping others do that as well. So from there, I've just pretty much wanted to do it all my life effectively.
And how long have you been coaching, and how did that start? Did that start in a gym? Did that start solely online?
Yeah, so in terms of how long I've been coaching for now, 2.5 to 3 years I've been coaching for now. But in terms of experience, like I said, I've been within gym environments since 14, which is fantastic.
Many years.
Many years, yeah. And then from there, it all initially started 3 years ago when I was in a pure gym. And then from there, I spent my first year as a one-to-one coach. I was gearing up to go online because I feel I could do a better job of helping more people. And then COVID obviously happened, forced my hand more so, which was a blessing in disguise. And then from there, I've just now transitioned over to the head of high performance coach, working with Joe Parrish, as a lot of people probably know listening to this, and then still running my own coaching business as well. So it all started in a pure gym, in a budget gym, which is cool.
And I was talking to Joe yesterday at Train Beach Club on one of our famous King Days. And our famous King Days is, for me, it's on a Wednesday, but I get all of our clients running those, which is an afternoon or a morning of no expectation, to just slow down and do nothing. And if you want to have someone with you, great. If you want to be alone, great. And it's often in those moments where your best ideas come from and where that inspiration starts to fly. But he was talking about how you eventually became the head of performance at the HPC, and it was quite an inspiring story. Can you share what that process looked like?
Yeah, so for me, it all started from the first lockdown, effectively. I was working with another coach at the time from a quite reputable coaching business, and at the time it was very much against my values and what I represent as coaching and what we do at High Performance Coach as well, where it's a lifestyle. It's about enjoying everything and not being too rigid and managing energy and everything else. And the coaching I was working with at the time was very much almost comp prep. So it's chicken, broccoli and rice, dark chocolate and peanut butter for dessert at the end of the day. And I was in this super rigid, restrictive diet training phase. And then lockdown happened. I discontinued working with that coach. And then effectively the floodgates opened in terms of me now eating anything I can get my hands on. Training was out the window because I've gone from super restrictive to then completely free, and I just, yeah, psychologically wasn't there for that. So it just sort of took me off the rails completely. I was in a worse position physically, mentally, psychologically I've been probably ever been in. It really impacted me, the business, my relationships. And from there, that was my trigger to then reach out to Joe. When I was on the call with him, he said, "What would make you a good client for me?" And then I just said, "I'm going to be your most successful client you've ever had." And that doesn't necessarily mean six packs and revenue and all these things. It just meant that I was going to embody his program, the high performance coach, because I felt it was almost made for me. And ironically enough, now that I am the head of high performance and Joe's seen something in me that feels I'm the right person for the job to help him grow and scale the business and impact more people. And yeah, I do truly feel a high performance coach was made specifically for me in a sense. And yeah, that's sort of taken me to where I am now, which is coaching other coaches and yeah, sort of being Joe's right hand man effectively.
Yeah, that's so cool. And he said that was a line that he said that fascinated me, which was, "I'm going to be the best, so the best success story that you've had." And and look at you now. And he's talking about that transition of, you were just in the group, you were helping people, you're there, you were showing up, and it was. He said it was the most natural transition he could have ever asked for. Sometimes the universe works in mysterious ways, and everything comes aligned. You mentioned something in there. About that all or nothing mentality. What I picked up was the all or nothing mentality
Mm.
of chicken, broccoli, rice. So then I used to experience this when I was boxing. When I was on, I was on. When I was off, I was off. And actually, I'd love to dive into that a little bit more and explore what did that look like and what did you experience?
Yeah, I think I've always been before that. I was always a black and white on and off. I was more of a light switch than a dimmer switch. And then for me now becoming a high performance coach, over the past sort of year and a half, I've transitioned from a light switch to a dimmer switch in all aspects of life. And yeah, I totally resonate with what you're saying there, that all or nothing, black and white. I think that's what a lot of clients do struggle with in the coaching industry, particularly even in the sense of like trying to achieve a goal. Like if you have a client who comes on board, right, I've got a wedding or a holiday, I want to get here and achieve this by this. Like, yeah, that's good and well, but what's after that? What's the vision after that we're trying to create? And that's sort of trying to embed that in people as opposed to, like you said there, on or off kind of thing. It's all or nothing approach.
Run me through the emotions that were happening at that period of time. Because when you're on, it's great. But when you're perceived as off, it can be a bit of a hole.
Yeah. So yeah, before the lockdown happened, in terms of being on, I'm one of them people where if you just give me instructions and say this is what needs to be done, this is what's going to happen, I'll do it. There's no questions asked. I'll just make sure that it gets done. I'm quite a conscientious person, so I put my all into everything effectively if I believe in it. So I did that, felt amazing, and then from when the lockdown happened, yeah, there was no point to it anymore. And like you say, there it was like a hole. I just sort of fell into this hole with not even any desire to get out of the hole initially. And yeah, it was just almost like in this black abyss because everything, as everyone knows that's listening to this through COVID, everything all hit at once. The gym shut down, the business suffered. Physically, I wasn't training, nutrition was out the window, so energy was all over the place. That then impacted my belief, my motivation, my drive, then impacted obviously the effort you can put into your life and your relationship and family, friends, and it all just domino effects from there and snowball effects into this, yeah, into this hole.
Yeah, I talk a lot about the hole, and it's okay to be in the hole, and don't beat yourself up for being in the hole, but don't stay there too long. The more time you stay in there, the more you're slowly digging and digging and digging and digging and digging, and then the light at the end of the tunnel just gets further and further away. But the good news is, if you reach out for help, i.e., you start shouting towards the top of the hole, and the right people here, they can drop little drop ladders, and not only can you get drop ladders, you can get little tools to sort of start carving your way out, whether that's journaling, whether that's having a support network, whether that's having friends. But the whole is real. And something I've seen a lot of coaches struggle with is with that nutrition part and looking at how they look and creating a very emotional relationship with food. I've seen that so often. Here's an interesting thing to think about, which just popped to mind. If you have any coaches that are struggling with binge eating, ask them, is there a particular food that they binge eat on? If the answer is no, insofar as like a general theme between sweet and savory? If the answer is no, then perhaps there isn't anything a bit deeper. But if it is, I always binge on sweet or I always binge on savory. Sometimes there can be mindset triggers and emotional triggers linked to that. I'll give you an example. When I used to binge eat after a boxing match or whenever I was going through a real anxious and depressive episode when I was fighting, I used to binge eat on pick and mix sweets. And I could never. I'd literally drive miles to go and get some pick and mix sweets. And I could never quite figure it out. And then I was working with Hazel Gale, a super incredible woman. She doesn't coach anymore, sadly, but she was a therapist as well, former kickboxing world champion. So she'd understood me. She understood how I was operating and where I was trying to go. And she goes, well, let's just have a look at where this sweet stuff comes from. I went, okay. So we were doing some timelines on the sweet stuff, and I went back into my childhood. And what I realized was my Spanish grandmother used to shower me with love all the time. But whenever she'd pick me up from the airport, or whenever she'd come and see me, or whenever I was there, she'd give me a big cuddle, a kiss, lots of love, and then she'd give me a massive bag of pick and mix sweets. So in those moments, or when I was binge eating on the sweets, I was actually looking for love and connection, and it was just that association with pick and mix sweets. I still love pick and mix sweets now, but there's nothing in my mind that's like I need to go and get that because I've cut that. I've cut the umbilical cord on that, and I think that's such an overlooked part is the emotion around sweets and the emotions around binge eating and food and things like that.
With what you've said there, mate, is something you mentioned a couple of weeks back in Glasgow was that in terms of like therapy and understanding things like you've mentioned there from your past, it's almost very much sometimes you'll get over it in short stints incrementally, or sometimes it'll happen in big waves of overcoming it. With that sweet one there, was that almost like an aha moment for you, or was that like a gradual understanding and being aware and overcoming?
Oh, it was an aha moment. It was like, fuck. It was like, whoa, it all makes
Yeah.
sense. Of course. Of course. But it doesn't necessarily mean it was fixed right away. It took time because, when you make those updates in the subconscious mind, it takes time to make those updates. Tell me, you're in the trenches with the coaches every single day. What do you see the differences between coaches that are fulfilled and feel connected with their mission and what they're doing, and then the ones that don't?
That's a very good question, mate. With that, there's probably a few answers to this, but the first thing that comes to mind is not, and not through fault of their own, but not being authentic to themselves and their business, and not being synergistic with their business. Effectively, they're sort of trying to, especially with social media and marketing. Again, no fault of their own. They're trying to put out what they think they need to put out and what they think people are going to like, or what they think will get people through the door, instead of just putting what they want to put out. Obviously, there's going to be some parameters around that in terms of marketing and sales, but yeah, just not living synergistically, and not their thoughts, their actions, and their words aren't in line. There's like a discrepancy between them somewhere and from their business, and it's not truly authentically them. Because as we know, if you're not, for example, if you go out wearing something to the center of town, you're wearing like a leopard print coat and zebra pants or something you may never wear. I'm not sure if you would wear that or not, maybe, but something someone would never normally wear. You're going to feel incredibly comfortable walking down the street. But if you go down, you're wearing sweatpants all day and just a black t-shirt, like, you're going to feel really comfortable. And I think that's what it is there. Social media is them wearing a leopard print onesie kind of thing. And it's not a representation of them and what they stand for, as opposed to being a comfortable walking on the street, if that makes sense.
It does. And I see it a lot with coaches where they say they'll do one thing and then they never follow through. And it gets to the point where you're a bit like, what's actually going to be different? And I think when you say you're going to do something and you consistently don't do it, I think you lose respect for yourself, whether that's conscious or unconscious. And then once that respect is gone, same with any relationship, it gets really, really hard to trust someone. And if you can't trust yourself because what you say and then what you do are not aligned, it doesn't add up. Like, if you want to go out and party all the time, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't kid yourself and say, I'm not gonna party anymore. It's done. It's over. It doesn't work like that. I'm working with Hugh Osborne, a top addiction specialist, and he's coming in to deliver a masterclass on addiction in the TMP Academy. And the thing that he spoke about addiction, which was so fascinating, was you don't take the thing away from the person. Everybody thinks you want to stop the addictive behavior. So if he's working with a drug addict or an alcoholic, a lot of them expect him to take them away. But they're not ready to take them away. And actually, there's like a wounded inner child, and it's a case of accepting what's going on and not beating yourself up for it, and also not making these big declarations that you're not going to be who you are. And he said, you don't want to take the bottle away from them if they're an alcoholic. You want them to hand it over. You want the inner child to hand that over. And it's so fascinating because when you see coaches not being authentic and just saying things that sound good, they sound like they've got conviction, but actually they're not backing. I think that's a theme, is they don't back themselves really. They say, yeah, I'm going to do this, and then they don't back themselves. That can be really, really frustrating, and it always makes me think, why?
I think with that there, you're 100% right. I totally agree with you. You want to be your best client. You act as if you were your own best client effectively, and coaches are their worst own clients and don't take their own advice. And like you're saying there, if you're consistently breaking promises to yourself, no matter how big or how small they are, you might think, oh, it's okay, it's only to myself. But if you had a friend that was consistently breaking promises and engagements with you and just wasn't turning up and all those good things, how long are you going to tolerate that and be your friend? It's probably not very long. Do you know what I mean? He's got to completely lose respect for them. And that's happening tenfold internally if you keep doing that with yourself.
Yeah, 100%. So run me through a little bit about the HPC. What do you think makes it different? Because I've been in a number of different groups. I'm actually a guest lecturer at the HPC, so I come in once a month. Once every quarter, I do a teach, and then the other 2 months, it's an open office. It's a safe space for everybody to share and open up, and everybody learns from each other. And what I've noticed about the HPC is that very similar to the TMP tribe, which is when you meet a HPC person or you meet a TMPer, you can there's just something about them that physically they might be very different, but there's a very, very similar set of values. You're obviously a big proponent of everything that's happened in there. How do you think you and Joe have built that community?
Through a lot of hard work, effectively. The first question you ask is what is different about us, effectively, and we believe in taking care of the person so they are in the best position possible to then manage the world around them, as opposed to what I've seen from my experience a lot of coaches do is where they try and manage the world around them, thinking that's going to manage them to some extent. But in terms of now building the culture and the community, it's difficult, as you're probably aware, mate, it's difficult to build a culture and community online with the same feel as an in-person community and culture. And that's the real trick of it. The way we've got around that is that we have quarterly intensive meetups, and then we also have monthly intensive meetups with smaller groups as well. And the whole there's a lot of bells and whistles that go into that in terms of like physical touch and a couple of things that we do there. At the last intensive, we played double and Jenga, which is a true a true builder of rapport and relationships with people, which is absolutely class. But yeah, like I said, it's about just bringing people together. It's about being relatable. It's about connecting and trying to get as many people to be as open and honest and vulnerable with each other as possible, because that then builds that trust, it builds rapport, it builds relatability. The last thing you need is to be in a group and feel like you're the only one in your group, despite being surrounded by 100 people. And so it's just trying to get them cross communication points as much as possible. I think is one of the biggest things that we've done to build the culture and community.
And that's something I hear a lot from coaches that are trying to build their own communities, and they feel like they're just shouting off into space and then nothing comes back. And I think it is a case of being consistent. It's a case of making those little differences. And another thing that I've spotted is if you actually drop prompts into the group, if you can do it in the right way, the amount of responses that you can get is just amazing. And some of the insights that you can share. And then as you keep doing that and you keep building that, it takes time. But something I see coaches struggle a lot with is that community building element.
Yeah. It is a real challenge. Like I say, particularly from in person to online, it's completely different. And yeah, it's just about getting people in front of other people and trying to share as much as possible. I had a question actually for you, mate, in regards to
Yeah.
like coaches in general, which I just thought I could ask on here because I think it could be beneficial for people listening. And it's been mentioned a few times, and it's sort of a common theme with coaches that we're these highly ambitious, driven people and always striving for something, moving uphill towards the horizon. And I was interested to get your thoughts on what you feel the difference between someone who's just naturally purely ambitious as a personality trait and people that are ambitious due to trying to potentially prove someone wrong or prove their worth from a previous experience, and is there a difference, and if so, what do you feel that would be?
Yeah, really simple. Is that person operating from scarcity or is that person operating from abundance? If somebody's operating from abundance and you can always sense it from someone. Is it genuinely coming from a place of, I want everyone to win? There's enough to go around for everyone. We can do this. A rising tide lifts all ship. 1 + 1 = 3. Let's go. Is it coming from that place, or is it coming from a place of ego, a place of status? And on the outside, you can see, I mean, look, this guy or girl, they look incredible. They're making lots of money. They've got lots of clients. But you can always tell deep down whether someone's genuine.
Mm,
You can always tell deep down whether something's slightly off. And there isn't a solid equation. It's like, well, do you look at body language? Do you look at their eye contact? Do you look at the way they're communicating? As humans, we're so good at sussing that out and seeing that. And I think those that are operating from genuine abundance, bearing in mind human beings aren't built to operate from abundance. We're built to operate from scarcity. We're built to operate from there's not enough food to go around. The fact that I can go in the fridge and just get whatever I want doesn't make sense. If we actually think about where we've come from, if you think about even chimpanzees, I'm fascinated by chimpanzees. Um, they can't just go into a bush and open up a little fridge. They have to go out and hunt and find and forage, and they're operating from a place of survival.
mm,
Not only are they trying to survive other predators coming to get them, they're also trying to survive in the social hierarchies that they've built. We're no different, but our hardware and our software hasn't been evolved for this abundance. So we're still naturally built for scarcity. We're naturally built for not enough, not feeling good enough, being accepted by the tribe. And I think it's very rare that you get any human being that is born feeling that they're perfectly enough in all areas and worthy. Nobody gets out of childhood without limiting
mm,
beliefs because they're the things that keep us alive. And they've kept us alive in the jungle. Um, Unless we're talking about psychopaths or narcissists,
mm,
and they get stuck in their own head where the narcissists are like, everything is perfect, I'm the best, almost like a god complex. But underneath all of that, there is insecurity. They just refuse to recognize it.
mm.
Psychopaths just lack feeling.
Okay. Yeah.
What the psychopath test is, if you're worried about ever being a psychopath, you can't be a psychopath. Like if you really start exploring what psychopaths are and you start worrying, oh my god, could that be me? No, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Psychopaths just are almost like and this is a bit of a contentious part, but like it's almost like homosexuality. Some people just know that they're gay. They just know.
Mm,
And it's the same. Some people just know that they're straight. I do believe that sexuality is on a spectrum, and some people are, some more in the middle, some more of the middle to the right. Some people are completely on the right, some people are completely on the left. But for some people, they just know.
mm,
Well, that's just what I like, and it's the same there. So I think ambition, it does come down to scarcity or abundance. And most people that are operating out of abundance have usually done a lot of work on themselves. They've either worked with a coach, they worked with a therapist, they've done a lot of reading,
mm,
they might have had some interesting medicinal or psychedelic experiences.
mm.
They'll have done something to take them out of scarcity and out of abundance, but we're not wired for abundance.
Okay. Yeah. No, thanks for that, mate. Makes sense. Yeah, I like that.
So tell me, let's say there's some coaches listening here, and in relation to they're stuck from their own coaching perspective, and they perhaps are in that place where you were. They're a little bit lost. Something that doesn't get spoken about enough is the relationship with oneself and their training, um, and how we can evolve that. But how what would you advise a coach that's kind of just either ticking over or they're starting to fall into the hole? How would you get them out of that?
Well, first and foremost, join the high performance coach or TMP. That would be the first port of call. But pretty much like whenever we get a new client on board, I always jump on a what we call a strategy call with them just to plan out the next sort of 90 days. And one of the most common themes or trends that I see from people is that, oh, if I can just get my body to where it needs to be, or just get the training in line. And that always seems to be the first port of call, because that then creates a knock-on effect to nutrition. The nutrition has a knock-on effect to sleep, and then into energy, and and then from there it goes in. But ultimately, coaches are so, and rightly so, because we're self-employed, we have to wear so many hats at once. Training seems to be, and nutrition is one of the first things to drop off, because we can just quote unquote get by on it, and it's not such a big deal because they've not got the accountability. But there are so many answers you can give to this as well. But I think a huge part of it is about being part of something, that sense of belonging, that you're not alone. I've just done a group call this morning, in fact, with some of the high performance coaches. And at the end of the call, I said, this call isn't about you solving your problems. This call isn't necessarily about you helping other coaches. This call is about you now understanding that you're in this community, in this culture. We've all got exactly the same challenges, maybe on different levels and different scales, but it's all the same thing, and you're in this together. And I think that gives someone the confidence and belief and backing that they can push forwards, because they know, one, they're not alone, and two, they've got other people there to support them. So I think my advice would be join a community or a culture, maybe not necessarily our things, but join something where you can be part of something for that sense, and also accountability. And yeah, I think that is one of the most important aspects of it. And yeah.
It's so interesting. And something I'd like to get your take on is the relationship with training, because something that I found difficult, and maybe this is just my background as a single person athlete, or a solo athlete, is I think a lot of coaches have a sporting background or an athletics background, some sort of competition that's led them to get in shape and train and whatever. And I found it really hard on even though I'm in communities, and I obviously build communities as well within the TMP. When it comes to my own physical training, I am very much, because as a boxer, it's all on you. It's all on you, and it's this weird thing where with business, with community, with everything, I'm fine. But when it comes to my training, it's a very specific area where my relationship with training is not the same what it used to be. My relationship with training used to be, in 8 to 12 weeks, I've got a tournament where I'm going to have 1 to 5 people try and knock me out. So I've got to get in shape. Or I've got to fight with a very specific person on my hometown, and everyone's going to be there. So I've got to turn up and prepare and whatever. That fire in my belly, I found quite hard to rediscover. It's getting there, and I'm enjoying it, but I found it really, from where I was, and this is something that I'm learning to accept, which is you're not that fighter anymore that has that fire in their belly, that's up at 6 a.m., even though I'm a night person, to go out and train because I've got a fight coming up. And I wonder, is it something that you see with coaches that used to be athletes, and they used to be in and maybe bodybuilders, I see this with bodybuilders as well, where they're evolving out of, I used to be a competitive bodybuilder, now I'm not, and I've helped coaches rebuild their identity off of that. I've actually sent a couple of coaches your way that are rebuilding out that identity. But is that a pattern that you see with ex-athletes? Because I see it a lot in coaches, that competitive element. But when it comes to their own training after that, and they're not competing anymore, there's a big identity shift that happens there.
Yeah, 100%. And it's almost like I said before, almost like black and white thinking to some extent, where it's like, well, I've got this to achieve and this to train for on this purpose. But then as soon as that purpose goes, then the tracks aren't there. And this is something that we actually try and coach and help people with. It's this aspect of having an ever ready body and just training for anything, ready for everything, as opposed to this one dimensional, this is what I'm doing to get to this end goal as a approach. And I think that to some extent helps you become more comfortable with yourself and what you're doing, and takes the pressure off of, right, I have to hit 5 sessions this week. In reality, it's like knowing to push and pull, knowing to, if Saturdays you're pushing in the direction of personal and family life, then that's it. That's your measure of success at that point, as opposed to now you have to get that 5th session in. You're going to sacrifice the family meals. And yeah, like I say, just having this ever ready mindset to where you are with training, with business, and everything.
Yeah, that for me has been something I've been finding hard because for me when it comes to coaching, being in like another, so I'm coached by Kirk Miller. I'm in his group, and it's an incredible group, and everybody's really really like supportive, and in there like they're all top CEOs, executives, investors, like some really high performers. But I do find sometimes where I'm like, I think it's just my boxing background, which is like, you're on your own. Do you know what I mean? Like, sure, you've got your nutritionist, you've got your coach, you've got your sparring partners and whatever, but you are kind of on your own. That's something that I'm trying to evolve out of at the moment is that element of I'm not on my own and I don't have a fight in 12 weeks because nobody else is in your body, no one else is in your head. And that's really hard to try and go, well, how do you repurpose that fire? And maybe I need to accept I'm not ever going to have that fire for training again. And actually, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it was like, we talk about the fire I had then. Imagine like a massive flamethrower that was like, Jesus Christ, going to burn the whole house down. Now it feels like a nice little bonfire, just like a little tiny little pile of sticks. So there's some flame there, and it's interesting. I'd love to get your take on it. Obviously, you coached that many coaches that are going through similar identity shifts.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a great point, mate. And something we say quite often is that with training, you want to be training well with your journey. It's more of a feeling that you want to be aiming for as opposed to that purpose and this tangible thing, which makes it quite difficult to help people with and understand. But I think it is just a process and understanding that if you switch your measure of success as opposed to just having my measure of success is I'm going to the gym for an outcome, just basing it upon, right, I'm going to the gym for 100 reasons. Oh, and the byproduct of that is because I'm going to look great or because I've got a competition. And it's about having as many measures, success metrics as possible along the way. So that if one success metric falls to the wayside, you've got 9 more to lean into and class that session as a success, or maybe even not doing that session as a success and just being okay with not giving 100% a lot of time. And this is something I said to my clients the other day is I feel a lot of the time people tend to feel they need to be at 100% to operate at any point of time. And if anything less than 100%, they'll throw in the towel. Like, oh, I'm a little bit tired today, so I'm not going to go to the gym. And I feel we need to get a little bit more comfortable or uncomfortable with not operating from a place of 100% and still getting the work done. So I hope that coincides with that as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think so. It's a fascinating dance that I'm playing with, like that whole change of not training to have a date and go right. You're gonna knock someone out now. And also, I've never really spent that much time in a gym. I did a little bit before, maybe a couple of months on and off. But this is the first time I've actually been in the gym consistently, like doing squats. Ask Ben Heron about my Romanian deadlifts. He loves to see them. Just doing that, I never really knew what they were before. Now I'm doing all these different lifts, and it's fun.
So
But it's a real identity shift of
potentially what you've just said there, mate, and again, potentially a measure of success for you now is just going to be that just pure exploration, growth, and development in that realm. Like you say there, you never done an RDL before or what it is, then that's you now progressing in the sense of knowledge and expanding that. Do you know what I mean? It's not about expanding your strength or your fitness. It's just generally knowledge within a gym, which I think is cool, man.
Yeah, we were talking about this at Train Beach yesterday, me, Joe, Ben, and we were talking about in business, a lot of coaches get wrapped up comparing their growth cycle to another growth cycle. Somebody's business is a baby, another one is like a toddler, the other one is like an adolescent, the other one's an adult, one's an elder. And we were talking about that, and that's super important in business. And then I reframed that for my own personal training, which is like, oh, I suppose I'm surrounded by elders. Like all of my clients have been in the gym for 10 to 15 years, or at least five. Do you know what I mean? Like, and a lot of them have actually competed, and they've been on stage as a bodybuilder. They've competed or whatever. And I've done my fair share of punching competition, but from actually being in the gym, that's completely new. And what's been so fascinating is as I've been going, how did these work? Everybody makes it look so easy, and Jesus Christ, everybody's bloody massive, and everyone's huge, and oh God. And then I'm like, well, and then yesterday as we were talking about the business growth cycles, completely retrained into the personal growth cycle, and I was like, I'm a baby. I've been doing squats for 6 months. Do you know what I mean? I was just learning this stuff. I think there's such a easy parallel for coaches in that, which is comparing their businesses and where their coaching businesses are at to others.
Mm,
And some people, for some people, and same as in real life, a baby or a toddler or an adolescent, they all mature at different ages. They all mature at different
mm,
stages, and it's having that patience and that foresight to sort of slow down. And those metaphors work for everything. But when I kind of realized I'm a baby surrounded by elders, like literally everyone around me has been training for like a decade. I'm like, okay, okay, yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, it's good fun. And then obviously in the mindset space, like, I was doing therapy before it was cool, before it was okay for men to even talk about
mm,
that sort of thing. So in that space, I'm a complete elder, and I think a lot of the industry are in that baby and in that toddler stage. So it's so fascinating, and I think having the humility and the self awareness to go, I'm a fucking baby in this bit, and the comfort of going, and I'm okay with that, versus that comparison of why am I not there yet? And that's always going to creep in, but as soon as you catch yourself, it's bringing yourself back to baseline, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, it's ironic because as soon as you do that and you have that level of awareness of where you are and being okay with it, that's where even more growth happens because it's like, oh, I can just come from a place of curiosity and no shame if I fail because I know when people know that I'm somewhat new to this and on some level, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Mate, one question I love asking all guests is forget us as a team, but what does the phrase total mental performance mean to you? If you had total mental performance, how would you know?
Right, total mental performance, how would I know? Very good question, mate. If I had total mental performance, how would I know? I would be in a position to deal with anything and everything that comes my way. And if there was ever anything that was too much for me to mentally handle, you would be obviously forced to take that hit, but then you would be in a far better position to bounce back from that sooner and faster than you would otherwise. So it's about having that mental fortitude from things coming your way. 90% of the time, obviously, there's going to be some that slip through the net and do impact you, but then that bounce back ability from that is the other side of that coin as well.
Troy Nixon, thanks so much for coming on, mate. I appreciate you. It's been fun.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, mate. It's been great.
Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram, T Nixon Fitness, or just on Joe Parish Instagram as well. There's some bits and bobs of me on there. So yeah, that's for me, mate.
Awesome, guys! If you resonated with this, drop a comment on our post. Drop a message to Troy. And as always, please do share. If you're listening to this, share it on your story. Put it on give it a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple. We're trying to push this out to as many pod coaches as we can. Thank you ever so much.